who, in a heavy wardrobe, never complained once. I never heard her complain. She had a little fan, and she would hold those little things on a battery, and she had her hairdresser, makeup person.
That wardrobe was so
heavy and hot. And we would, when she wasn't in a scene, she'd go in her dressing room, which was fine. But when we had to shoot the scene, because of the sound quality, we had to turn the generator off in her dressing room, or all the dressing room, so we could get the scene shot. So many times we say, okay, let's do it again, and it'd be 20 or 30 minutes that the generator wasn't on. So she not only had to wait on the set, but also wait in her dressing room. Never a word of complaint.
One year there was Lana Turner's light man or cameraman came on the set, but he took a little too long. Well, a 6-day show went to 7.5 days.
Yeah, well, he was in love with Linda, which wasn't hard to do. He was, I would say, enamored, because he wanted to make her look beautiful, which he did, but it took hours and hours of fighting. We also have another gentleman over there that I want you all to know is Ray DeWay. I'm not putting it down at anything. He was the labor. And it was his job to fill in where needed in any capacity on the set. And he did yeoman's work, believe me. He was on the set every day, worked his tail off. Still a good friend.
Is Ray the last remaining member of the crew?
I think so. I can't, he and I have talked about the crew, but we can't think of anybody that is still around. We had some, we had a great crew. We had a set decorator. They used to call him Meyer the Buyer, because he used to go out and buy stuff for us. He took Clyde Harper was our head of our transportation, so they went out one day and they said, oh, this is, come on over to this bar, I'll buy you lunch. So they went in, had 2 beers, the lunch was free. We'd watch 2 beers. He took Clyde to lunch. And, no, it was generally a well-working bunch of people.
You got a question?
Yeah, I was wondering, did you guys take anything from the set and something personal?
Only money. No, I never did. You took some wardrobe.
I did.
Yeah, whatever.
I had the men's wardrobe. Everything that you see in the pictures that we have. I had the shirt, the moccasins, the French on them.
You still have it?
No, that my house burned down.
We sold it.
But I had it. I sold it. I didn't sell it.
I actually sold all the wardrobe.
Yeah, my first job.
Yeah, and so that must have been, there had to be some challenges coming into a really well-established group like that.
You know, you would think there would be, but so these guys, they've been there and done that. Even Henry, who was becoming a big star, had been honing his craft, and he was already a wonderful actor. It showed him naked as a wonderful actor. He was a wonderful actor. And the rest of America got to find out who he was. They had all had wonderful careers. So you would think that there would be issues, but there wasn't. I was too young to even realize that this was, and I had the job that I had gotten. That's what you train for. You get acting now, so that's very lucky break. And then I walked into a group of people who were very secure within themselves, who knew how to work. They were threatened by me. They just kind of everybody. Henry was the first one to greet me the day I arrived on set to have a wardrobe fitted with this on. I used to have a picture which also burned up. We have filmed in my dressing room. Greeting him, shaking my hand. Andy, the wardrobe guy, was standing in the background. that was the kind of reception that I got from everybody, support. And you know that they like you when you start playing practical jokes, which they did. And no contest about it.
Would you share a couple of
No.
them?
They're X-rated. But believe me, they are masters of practical jokes. Starting at the end of the table.
I've always heard there were poker games. Did you play poker?
No,
Any of
I
those
didn't
games?
play poker. I drank with them. Roberto Contreras felt it was necessary to teach me how to drink. As if I didn't already know. It was just he wanted the drinking part, which he got. But this was, Kent's right, it was a hard-working crew. I mean, very hard-working and extreme heat. There were people passing out on the set, especially if we go out into the desert.
Javier did the same application.
Henry Darrow did too. He did, yes.
He is the one.
I guess he did.
But it was
I
extreme.
fainted.
Oh,
Everybody,
yeah.
and everybody was out in it. And then in the evenings, everybody partied hard. Except Henry,
Yeah.
he was all over the guy. He was wherever he was going to get private, cool off. And who else? About it. But yeah, it was a very knowledgeable group. It was a knowledgeable. I mean, I actually said once I should be paying him now because I was learning my craft and I was getting paid for it. But learning it by doing it, but also the advice. I remember my opening episode when lunchtime I had my plate full and Henry walked by and said, "Don't eat all of that," because I had a big scene after lunch, and it was with him. I said, "Why?" He said, "Blood, digest, you won't remember your mind." Oh, yeah. And I ate, and we get just doing this scene. I couldn't remember a thing. I mean, that's just experience that we passed on to somebody. Not me. Me, yeah, it happens. So just little things like that always can happen from day one. It was a great experience. You couldn't ask for a better first job ever. It was great.
You know, I just want to mention somebody who we've lost in the last year. Two people. One who we just lost right before we came here. The wonderful Bill Hammerman, who was the casting director for High Chaparral, passed away. He was here not here in Tucson, but he did attend one of the reunions and so loved it and so happy in seeing everyone. And also, just a week ago, we lost the wonderful Malachi Tone, who came to the reunion and loved it and kept in touch with Penny. And when he would get an invitation to come, he'd say, "Oh, I would love to, but I just can't make it." I really wanted to pay tribute to both of them. They were both very instrumental in making this a special show.
I got a couple of good Bobby Hoy stories, little quick ones. In those days, we always used to drink pretty good, not on the set, not at work, but after work, we would get in there and give it hell sometimes. And we'd get it, Saturdays we worked, we'd get in, get cleaned up, and get ready to go out. One night, Bobby and I, we got all dressed up, we're gonna hit the town. And we go in the bar, and we sit down, and we're having a drink, it's about 7:30, 7:45. I got a drink, Bobby's got a drink, we're kind of thinking, what are we gonna do tonight? Man, we're gonna have fun tonight. And about that time, David Dortort walks in, our producer, biggest guy on the show. He says, "Hi, boys, how are you?" I said, "Fine, Mr. Dortort." He says, "Can I have a drink with you guys?" And we went, oh, Jesus. Yeah, I should have been sitting down. And the waitress come around and they ordered something. She says, Bobby, what would you like? Bobby says, he already had drinks in there. He says, I'll have an orange juice. And I gave that look, and she asked me what I want. I says, I'll take the same thing. So she comes back, and we talked a little while with David, and Bobby looked at his watch. It's only about 8:15, 8:20. He says, oh, boy, says, it's by bedtime. Saturday nights, I go to bed early. He says, I'll see you. And he got up, and he walked like this. He gets back here. I got up. And I said, oh, David, I said, well, my bedtime, too. I went to bed. And the halls went this way. Bobby went this way, and I went that way. And I'm down there at the end of the hall. Like this. And I go like this. I peek around like that. And down the other end, I can't walk down there now, but I see this. Bobby looking at me. I'm like, Bobby, we're watching. We see David get up and leave. And Bobby goes. So we come back out. And we stroll back down to the bar. And gave it hell.
Yeah.
Incidentally, not trying to single out anybody who was any better than anybody else, but Bobby Boyd was extraordinary. He grew up on a horse ranch in Northern California and got into the stunt business in the late 40s. He doubled Tony Curtis on every show that Tony Curtis did. He doubled a lot of people. The true person, a stuntman, if you're doubling lead actor, as you come by the camera, you turn away. You may look like him in wardrobe, you may look like him physically, but you don't want anybody to see your face because you're not the same as Robert Taylor might be, that Henry Wills all. So the true professional stunt people are a breed all their own.
So it's on a hero.
There are. They're never given credit for what they've done in the industry. Hal Needham got an Academy Award this year for his work. But he was one of the best stunt people who became a director and producer. But all the stunt people worked hard. They laid everything. If they were doing a scene in a saloon fight, they choreographed it like you would a dance number. Now that may sound silly, but everybody, all the stunt people know where everybody else was going to be. So there was any overlap and anybody got in anybody's way. And they were always wonderful to work with. On one occasion, just quick, we were shooting a scene in the pilot. Chuck Hayward was playing an officer in the cavalry. And he was a wonderful rider. But as he came up towards the ranch, his horse got spooked and bucked and threw him off. And he lands on the ground about 10 feet from it, and he lays there motionless. And I was tempted to run out to him, but I couldn't do that because they hadn't cut the camera yet. You know, you got to wait till they say cut. So finally when they said cut, I ran out because he's laying there. I said, "Are you okay, Chuck?" He said, "Yeah, I'm fine." He got up. I said, "Why the hell did you just lay there motionless?" He said, "If I don't move, the horse will step over me. All the other horses, they'll see you, and they'll gauge themselves and step over you. You start thrashing around, they get nervous, I get nervous, and I'm going to get stepped on." So I mean, to be able to think ahead like that was all of them. And they were all a great group of people. Yes?
That leads me to a question that I have. Rudy knows that I'm interested in natural horsemanship. He and I both share that same passion. And being a veterinarian, it's hard to watch a TV Western or a movie Western and the way the horses are yanked around all the time. One thing about the High Chaparral is the level of horsemanship skills. I'm sure not everyone who came on set knowing how to ride, but the respect that the riders gave to the horses was incredible compared to other westerns of the time and also movies. So my question is, who was responsible for helping to make sure that the horses had the proper care and consideration?
We had a stunt coordinator called Henry Wills, and he worked with all the cast even before we shot the pilot. A lot of them out with the ranch. Don knew how to ride. Henry, they looked at the horse, but I don't think he was very fond of it. And so we had doubles. All the main characters had doubles. You got to remember, they're the money. And you wouldn't want anything to happen to them so you couldn't work. So all the main characters did have doubles. Don Colliers didn't have one because he rolled perfectly. Bobby Hoy was an excellent rider. So a lot of the bunkhouse people did not have doubles. But Bobby Hoy, for instance, and I'm not trying to take anything away from Henry, but if he was riding in a big group scene and Henry was riding, Bobby would always be close by. So if Henry's horse got a little out of whack and wanted to take off, he could ride up and rein it back. So there was always that protection. You always protected the stars. There's no two ways about it, and it's still done in any Western you see.
But to answer your question, the main reason that everybody respected the horse was because of people like Henry Wills and Bob Hoy, who really not only respected them, but loved them and wanted to make sure that they weren't hurt as well as the cast members. So that was what the big difference was.
Some of the stunt guys like Jerry Gatman, who I all marked up, and he did a lot of scenes at Chaparral, where he's riding along, he picks up both arms, and firing the rifle, and he's steering the horse with his knees. Now that's a trick you learn. We also had trick horses that you could pull a rein and he would fall. I mean, there was no horse was ever hurt on any of the shows we did. They were always trained horses that they had to fall or buck. So I mean, it was never, you're always conscious of, in the old days, they used to put wires down and the horse would hit the wire and fall. And that was all outlawed by the Humane Society, which was great. No one wanted to hurt an actor, no one wanted to hurt a horse, because it just wasn't done. You always took time to lay everything out ahead of time.
You know, there's always, and you always wanted to get your face in the camera if you could. Even if you weren't delivering something dialogue, you'd be kind of in the background, and you'd be looking, you know, for space to get your face in the camera. And like for me and Bobby be horseback, and I'd look at Bobby, and sometimes he'd be hanging off that horse like this. His face in the camera. You can't ride like that. He said, yes, I can.
I have a comment and a question, and probably the question is going to be for you, Mr. Craig. The comment is, I have a 5-year-old daughter who watches the show with me on Friday nights. That's what we do. And she loves the show. And I have to say, Mr. Darrow, she has a huge crush on you. 5-year-old daughter.
Rather young Mark Slade used to go. 9-year-olds used to go for him. I had the more mature 12-year-olds.
Oh! Well, they're getting younger now.
Yes, they are.
Actually, the question has to do with the theme song or the theme music in the last season. I noticed it changed just slightly.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's kind of a more, does anybody notice that? It's faster. Was there a reason for that?
I would imagine the reason for that was because the arrangement was different. Sometimes it came to changing the sound a little bit so that it sounded fresher instead of the same, which would pick up a tempo, make it more alive, make it more exciting. You'll find that the notes were changed, but you'll find that possibly the rhythm was different and it was picked up a little bit. That may have been the reason, because the timing of the credits, I don't think were any different. So that's, you know. That's,
You also have to consider, as period changed, our culture became quicker. You accepted different music because of the way it was sounded. We were into a lot of different sound music. So everything we had to kind of stay with the pulse of what the audience wanted. They didn't really want slow things. The whole culture was
it
changing.
was picked up a little bit more.
Also, the year, I think it was Stan and I were talking about, the year that Bobby Kennedy was shot and assassinated in Los Angeles. All three networks and all of the major programming features backed off on violence. And it really hurt our show terribly. Not that we had violence, but we had a lot of rough stuff, wars with the Mexicans, the Indians, and so there was a lot of action that we had to curtail. For instance, you could shoot the rider off a horse, but he had to get up and walk away. You couldn't let him lay there. The same thing with a horse. If a horse fell and you thought he was shot, he had to get up and walk away. And so we were curtailed in many ways with the culture of the times. And I think that also affected the music. It affected everybody.
Yeah.
Yes.
One of my favorite episodes was the one with Frank Borshman and the Camel. And I made comments on Facebook about the beautiful music that was playing, the song that Frank Borshman did. And that was a very beautiful piece.
Stinky Flanagan?
Yes, yes. And,
Frank Borshman.
the other thing I wanted to know was, what was it like working with the Camel?
Well,
Spit a lot.
all I can tell you, I didn't know too much about camels. At one point in my career, I was working with Ralph Edwards, who was the founder of Truth or Consequences and a lot of shows. And I was working a daytime show with him where he used to go back and do camel work and all kinds of stunt stuff out in the street with different people. And we had a camel, and at the last minute, the wrangler got sick. So who's going to lead the camel down the street but me? He spit down my back and down my neck. I mean, and it had an odor that made Don Cotter's earlier story look like roses. They're a strange animal. We never had any physical problem. We had special wranglers that took care of them. But they were a strange animal and kind of difficult to work with.
Some great episodes there.
Yes.
My question is for Henry about the show Zorro and your book. I was reading your book when I was going through chemotherapy, and it helped pass the hours. And I was sitting in my chair as the infusion was going, and I turned the page and I saw a photograph of you and the actor A. Martinez. And I had the hugest crush on you, and then when I was 15 on him. And to see the both of you together, it just startled me. I set the beeper going off on my came over and he said, "Are you all right?" I said, "Look."
He's still my heart.
All about this. And so some of the nurses said they were going to go online and check out, what my chaparral was and stuff. But my question is, what was it like working with A. Martinez?
It was good, a very serious
Or was it a
actor,
movie
and
or a...
He was a very serious person. And he also he was a musical person. He was good with his dialogue. And then my character was a magician in Santa Barbara. And he returned home, and my character had a sense of humor. It caught me as I was losing leading man qualities, as I was getting older. It brought about another facet of the character, and I still had a girlfriend, etc. And he would break up for real. He'd just laugh at me. Actually, he said to me, "Well, I'm talking to you seriously." He said, "I know, Dad, I know." And he'd just laugh in my face, and he could get away with it, which is what I used to do with Cameron Mitchell. When Cam and I would be working in a scene, I laughed for real. I laughed at Cam doing something. I said, you're not going to pick up those mashed potatoes and just go plop, plop, plop. He picked up the mashed potatoes and went plop, plop, plop. I laughed as Henry Darrow. And that's been sort of a kind of a quality I still try to bring to my stuff. Use myself as a key. Yes?
Tell how many times you worked with Abe Gifford from, because...
Oh, I played his father in Seguin, a PBS show. I played his father in Santa Barbara.
For which you won a daytime Emmy for that.
Yes. And the Seguin episode was a good one. And at that time, Latins were being allowed to get major roles. And I know one time, one of the networks were thinking Gilbert Roland and Henry Darrow as some like detectives. But they already had a Mexican show. It was like, which is that? One of them was on the point. And they said, well, you know, we already had a Mexican character. And that was the end of it. Nothing else. Nothing else happened. But, and there were a couple of other shows that...
You also, what I thought more interesting is that you probably worked with A on that religious show.
Yeah, there was a religious show, Father Kaiser. Yeah.
And Henry played his father over and over and over again.
Yeah, it was a good run. I think I played his father 4 times at least.
Going back to your laugh, there was no better laugh than in the pilot where you came out of the balcony and were sitting down. That was the best laugh. The favorite character from that point on be something.
It was amazing. And one of the things in the first scene I had, everybody in the ranch was in the front of the fences shooting, and nothing happened. And then came the solo shot, where I saved Life Harrison's life by killing an Indian that was about to shoot him. And in the process, I talked to the gun person, and I said, when I reload, because you had to take, the bullet went out, and then you had to reload with another bullet. And I said, what can I do to create something? He said, well, if you hold it up close to your face, the smoke will come up from the rifle. And that's when Life Harrison said, good thing you came along, thank you. And I said, if you go up, I said, you know, keep your hands up because I don't want to steal your horse.
I wanted to mention the lady who asked Henry those wonderful questions about A. Martinez is Lauren Levian, who is Henry's wife, who is absolutely the most wonderful actor as well.
So we're going to break for lunch now, and I want everyone to take notice of your schedules, because the next thing up after lunch is the Henry Darrow book signing, and then we'll be back in here at 2:30 for more question and answer with our fabulous